your mics and keep your cameras off until our questions and answer period. And until such time, please note your questions for the dedicated Q&A sessions. You can use the chat feature. We encourage you to use that chat feature so that you can post your questions and comments during the presentation. And of course, through our able presenters, we will aim to have all your questions addressed during the presentations or at the end in the Q&A. We encourage you to participate in the poll that we will be putting up shortly as well. And of course, just to let you know that the session is being recorded, and this recording will be made available to all when we send out our post-webinar communication so that you can access it. I assure you that your privacy will be respected and also that your personal information will not be shared by anyone outside of PODS and the organization. Finally, I will be posting the feedback form, which is very important to us, in the chat so that at the end of the session, you can participate in our feedback. And that feedback form will also allow you to engage us, should you need to engage us afterwards, if you're going to be working on particular projects or you just want some information, etc. Okay, so moving right along. Some people, sorry, I just think I moved too fast. There we go. So the agenda, I'm just going to walk you through quickly over the next 1.5 hours. We will be getting into climate change, flood resiliency and mitigation. We'll also be looking at regulations and standards for flood barriers, cost-benefit analysis of flood barriers, designing flood barriers for urban spaces, and we're going to look at some case studies of successful flood barrier projects in the international and local environments. And of course, questions and answers, and then we close off. Okay, so let's go right into some people. Let me just take a brief moment to introduce POD. Some of you may or may not know us, but we are the premier emergency management consultancy and solutions company here in Trinidad and Tobago. And our expertise lies in the areas of mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery. Some of our products, some of our products, of course, not limited to, would be things like mobile shelter systems, emergency lighting, FEMA certified training, specifically the incident command system. And also for the purpose of today, we'll be looking at flood protection, which is really one of our core competencies among the entire products and service line. So I'm Stacey Ann Pio-Soria. I'm the Managing Director of PODS Emergency Management Consultancy and Solution. And as the founder, I have for the past 19 years. May I ask that you take off your videos? If you have on your video, please take it off until we are in the Q&A session. Thank you for your understanding. So for the past 19 years, my company and I have helped individuals and businesses and government agencies respond, recover, and mitigate against natural and man-made disasters. With my passion for emergency management and my strong belief in giving back to society, I also founded an NGO, the Emergency Management Association of Trinidad and Tobago, whose underlying reason is to advocate for and strengthening of a vibrant disaster risk reduction culture in Trinidad and Tobago. I also, in this year of June, founded the first Trinidad and Tobago Disaster Risk Management Conference and Expo in June, and where for the first time a range of partners and stakeholders were brought together to explore further integration, collaboration, and country-level implementation, looking at what's getting in the way of building our resilience to hazards and reduce the impact to lives and livelihoods. Just to note, in terms of our flood mitigation work, to date, we have installed close to 200 flood barriers in Trinidad and Tobago, and actually I can happily say that at the end of this month, we'll be doing our first installation on our beautiful sister island of Tobago. So I am today ably assisted and supported by a team of local and international subject matter experts in flood mitigation, and that comes with a lot of practical experience that we hope to share and impart our knowledge today. All right, now, so before we go on, and I hand you over to my first, and I'm on time, thank God I'm on time, my first speakers, my first two speakers, I am going to post a poll very shortly in the chat because we would like very much to understand and appreciate who our audience is this morning. So bear with me while I load the poll. As we load the poll, I'm going to launch the poll. Please submit your responses in the poll. We want you to engage with us. Let me see. Can you tell me if you're seeing the poll in the chat? Yes? Tell me.
Yes. Yes, it can be seen.
Wonderful.
Yes.
So can you go ahead and submit your responses and we can see exactly what are the responses to the poll. All right, responses are coming in. We want to know if you're here really for the primary purpose of either protecting your business from flooding, you want to protect critical infrastructure, you want to know more about solutions for stormwater drainage. What's happening here? Okay, they're coming in nicely. We want to know if you're looking at solutions for coastal erosions. Wonderful. Nice. Okay, so they're still coming in. I'll give us a little 5 to 10 seconds again. Keep those responses coming in. Thank you so much for your responses. All right, so from, let's see, 29 responses, and they're still coming in. Come on, my beautiful people, post your response so we could get to see your areas of interest. We want to make sure we meet your expectations. Thank you. All right. Well, from the looks of things, from the audience, we have 66 people on. Votes are still coming in. And it looks like a lot of people are on to protect critical infrastructure, followed by their homes. Some people are looking for containment and coastal erosion. Not seeing the poll. Somebody says they're not seeing the poll. Okay, that's all right. That's okay. We'll just keep moving ahead. But thank you for your interaction. So moving on now. It is in the chat. Yes, it was in the chat. Maybe you need to scroll through your chat. And I am going to now introduce our first two speakers who will take us through climate change, flood resiliency, and mitigation. And this is courtesy our two National Disaster Management Offices, our Office of Disaster Preparedness and Management in Trinidad, and also the Tobago Emergency Management Agency, who are partners for me. I aim to work with them in everything that I do because we need to work and we need to work together. So let me introduce Ms. Cassie Roopnarine, and I will introduce Mr. Darian Mitchell thereafter, and they will take us through our first presentation. So Cassie is a GIS specialist with 5 years of experience in geographic information systems, currently working at the ODPM. Her expertise includes conducting flood risk assessments and developing GIS-driven strategies to strengthen disaster resilience. With a background in disaster risk reduction, Cassie leverages GIS tools to enhance resilience at both strategic levels and within vulnerable communities, fostering community-based solutions that better prepare populations to face and recover from natural hazards. Cassie's work bridges the gap between technical GIS applications and practical on-the-ground strategies, making her a valuable asset in the field of comprehensive disaster management. Cassie, get ready for your presentation, and let me one time introduce Mr. Darian Mitchell. And Darian is currently the GIS specialist at TIMA in Tobago, where he plays a pivotal role in interpreting geospatial data and coordinating emergency responses. His hands-on experience includes drone operations, generating maps of high-risk areas, and supporting various functions such as ICT, Community Emergency Response Teams or CERT, logistics, and PR. His work has been crucial during hurricane seasons and other major incidents where his GIS products have been instrumental in planning and operational processes. He also volunteers as president of the Tobago Youth Council, and he's definitely a leader and an advocate to many international forums where he's represented Trinidad and Tobago. Okay, so now I will stop sharing my screen and allow for Cassie to take the stage. There you go. Is everybody seeing Cassie's presentation? Yes, please indicate.
Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. All right. So Cassie, the show is yours. Climate change, flood resiliency, and mitigation.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Thanks, Stacey-Ann, for the introduction. Today I will be presenting on flood exposure and impacts for Trinidad and Tobago, highlighting the need for a more mitigative approach. In terms of what will be presented today, we have an introduction into ODPM, hazard profile of Trinidad and Tobago, looking at our geographic location and how it influences our hazard exposure and vulnerabilities. I'll touch on climate change a little bit and then delve into data-driven insights for flood impacts.
Cassie, would you like to turn on your video? Sorry about that. So we can see you.
Also, if she could speak up a little, please. We're not barely hearing.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry about that. So the ODPM is the National Disaster Management Agency of Trinidad and Tobago, and our mission is to build national disaster risk management and climate change adaptation capabilities with our partners to coordinate response and recovery operations, ensuring that we have a disaster resilient nation. Based on some research that we conducted in 2019 with the Pacific Disaster Center, we estimated that there's 89% of our population exposed to flooding in Trinidad and Tobago. We are exposed to multiple hazards, but flooding is one of the most important ones, or ones that we are highly exposed to. Climate change is expected to augment our risk profile, so not only introduce new risks, but exacerbate the current risks that we have. And from a recent IPCC report, it highlighted that our mean temperatures and precipitation will continue to increase. All in all, that is to say that we have a diverse hazard landscape and vulnerabilities attached to that. Here we have flood susceptibility for Trinidad for 2023, and this highlights flood exposures. The map integrates multiple different factors, including elevation, drainage capacity, and land use. And it provides a comprehensive view of the region and the areas that are most exposed to flooding. So it highlights areas that continuously experience flooding and pinpoints the regions that need more attention. If we look at recent statistics and data collected from the ODPM and Rural Development and Local Gov, through an initiative that was launched in 2022 to collect household level data hazard impacts, this chart here shows that data specifically for floods from 2023 to present, and it is categorized by the regional corporations. As you can see from the chart, notable areas would be Tunapuna Piako, Pinal-Debe, and Kuva Tabaki Talparo. They have significantly reported a number of flood events at a household level, highlighting that these are key areas of concern. Based on the data collected, we would have created a hotspot map that highlights key flood-prone areas identified earlier at a household level. but it's important to have a comprehensive view. So now we will look at specific extreme flood events that have occurred in recent years. Starting with 2018, so during the 18th and 19th of October, Trinidad and Tobago experienced torrential rainfall across the country. Based on a CEDIMA situational report, it would have estimated that 80% of the population was actually affected. There were major flood events and secondary impacts of landslides, and this affected communities, public services, and blocked several main routes. The central and eastern regional corporations were mostly affected. So these would be Shogunas Borough Corporation, Cuba, Tabaquita, Paro, areas in Mayaro, Rio Claro, Sandy Grande, and Tunapuna. And it was estimated that 15 schools were closed as a result of this. If we look at 2019, this would have been the Grand Bazaar area. So St. Joseph River broke its bank in the vicinity of Grand Bazaar, and as a result of this, flooding occurred, inundating major highways and causing major traffic disruption. I think I skipped a slide. So in June of 2019, for Diego Martin, we would have seen that the northwest and northern regions of Trinidad had major flooding events that disrupted critical infrastructure and major roadways. So the image illustrates the impact of this to key transportation routes. For 2022, because of a tropical wave, there were flooding in Claxton Bay and Penal area, so south of Trinidad, and later that year in October of 2022, there was a 5-day severe weather event that brought significant floods to the northwestern area of Trinidad. So the image shows flood impacts on Saddle Road, Maraval. And then in 2022 on November, we see significant flood events in Sandy Grande causing disruptions along Picton Road. If we look at June 2023, we have at the onset of the rainy season, there would have been severe flood events affecting the Penal Bay and Princestown Regional Corporation. So this image highlights flood impacts to Kanhai Road in Barrackpore. And then if we fast forward to now on this year, on August the 12th, we would have had heavy rain and flash flooding, which submerged several homes and roads within Samoa Laventille Regional Corporation. We also had some severe street flooding reported along Port of Spain, Valsayn, and St. Augustine. So for 2024, we have images that highlights the major roadways impacted in South Key, Port of Spain, as well as the effects to several businesses in St. Augustine on the left. These are just a few examples of the many that we experience, and over the past few years, Trinidad has experienced increasing flood events with climate change exacerbating the intensity of them. We are seeing a rise in reported incidents at the ODPM with widespread impacts on not just the household level, but critical infrastructure and key sectors. And this underscores the need to have effective mitigation strategies to reduce and manage the escalating impacts. That concludes my presentation. Thank you for your time and attention.
Stacy, you're muted.
Stacy, I know, muted.
Oh, sorry about that, guys. Okay, I want to hand right over to Darian. We're a little bit behind time. So Darian, are you ready? You can go ahead and
Yes.
share your screen and take it away. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so good morning, everyone. I'm just confirming that you all could hear me.
Yes, perfectly. You want to switch on your camera so we can see you as well?
Hearing you clearly.
All right, no problem. Okay, so my presentation is somewhat similar to that of Cassie's. So just for the overview and the objective, I'll be looking at the introduction to the Tobago Emergency Management Agency, the hazard profile of Tobago, the data-driven insights, and the conclusion. Right, so what is TEMA? TEMA is the Tobago Emergency Management Agency, which is primarily responsible for coordinating disaster preparedness and response in Tobago. Our mission statement to coordinate a network of agencies and individuals within the island of Tobago to direct their efforts to maximum preservation of life and the protection of property in times of disaster. Some of our key functions will be risk assessments and management, community education and awareness programs, and coordination with national and regional disaster management agencies. Now, some of the current initiatives we have as it relates to flooding will be the development of flood response protocols and community engagement programs to enhance local resilience. Now, we'll just look at the topography of Tobago. If we look closely, we could see that Tobago is a highly susceptible area in both landslides and flooding, primarily due to the steep terrain, right? So we have dense vegetation and frequent intense rainfall. The mountains topography causes rapid runoff and heavy rains, primarily in flash flooding for us in certain areas. So if you look where you see the blue, you see these are the areas that are highly susceptible to flooding, and the areas in red are the areas that are highly susceptible to landslides. Now, this is one of the maps we would have developed through the agency where you'll be able to scan the QR code in order to know your susceptibility. So once you scan the QR code, it takes you to a live map that would allow you to see the area that you're in to determine if you're more susceptible to flooding or if you're more susceptible to landslides. Now, as we move forward, we look at the hazard profile. So the natural hazards we're most likely susceptible to would be flooding, landslides, and tropical storms. These are the most common threats in Tobago, right? Seismic risk, we have it for Trinidad and Tobago, and we can see that it's a seismically active region in which we both live in. Climate impact, we have rising sea levels and increased storm surges. A lot of sea level rise taking place on the Atlantic side of the island, and we can see a lot of erosion taking place as well. This will be affecting a lot of roadways as well as agriculture and tourism areas. Landslides account for a significantly larger portion of our hazard events, making them a significantly larger threat than floods in terms of frequency in Tobago. Now, flooding is a recurring hazard in Tobago, especially in 2022 for the most recent times. But in terms of our capacity, landslides would be the highest for us. But the flooding that we receive usually occurs in areas that have a lot of critical infrastructure. So flooding in Tobago, the types of flooding, we primarily receive flash floods from heavy rainfall, riverine flooding from prolonged rainfall, and coastal flooding due to storm surge. Now, if you look at the images on the right-hand side of the screen, one of the critical infrastructures that received flooding would have been Tech, and this would have been in 2019, as well as Scarborough to the right of that. You can see where Scotiabank is there, as well as a supermarket to the right of it. All of these areas would have been flooded. And this area is immediately in front of the port of Scarborough. To the bottom left, you'll see that the port of Scarborough was also flooded as well. And if you look very closely in the background, you'll see one of the vessels actually in the port at that point in time. And then to the right on the bottom as well, that's the Bonaccord area that would have been severely flooded. That area is the ingress and egress route primarily to the airport, and a lot of commercial activities and tourist activities usually take place on this side of the island. Now, some of the key flooding events you would have received would have been October 2004, November 2010, December 2013, August 2018, September 2019, October 2020, April 2021, and October 2022. Now, based on our flood data for the past 5 years, 2022 would have seen 39 flood events. A vast majority of these would have been residential. However, the flash flooding areas that would be mentioned later on, you would see where they come in and how significant they are. 2021, we would have received 32 flooding events, which would have been a slight decline from 2020. Now, in 2022, we saw a sharp increase primarily due to Invest 91L. This would have resulted in a significant amount of landslides as well as rainfall. The flooding event is actually 1/4 of that of the amount of landslides that we would have received for that year. 2023, we'd have had 33 flooding events. There was no significant adverse weather that would have resulted in that level of flooding for us. So as a result of that, it will return back to the normal level. And as of today in 2024, we are at 21 flood events, primarily residential. Now, the top areas of flooding in Tobago would be Scarborough, Crown Point, and Roxborough. Other areas would also include Plantations, Charlottesville, Blackrock and Plymouth, Grafton, and Buku as well. Now, if we look at the flood susceptibility map itself, I'm going to highlight some of the key areas that are susceptible to flooding that have a lot of critical infrastructure that we need to pay close attention to. Now, these areas would be Scarborough, Crown Point, and Roxborough. These areas were selected because there's a Port of Scarborough present. We can previously saw that Tiantec was also there. Crown Point is the airport is present, as well as that's the main egress and ingress route for the airport, as well as a lot of commercial activities. Roxborough, they have the fire station, the police station, and the hospital within that area as well as close proximity, there's also a gas station. Now, if these areas are flooded and emergency responders are unable to leave or to be able to respond, that would cause a lot of damage or would reduce the amount, would increase the amount of impact that would be viable to that area as well. So if we just look on the map, we can see how it's dispersed. The Crown Point area to the left here, Scarborough and Roxborough. Those are the areas that usually have the most critical infrastructure, as well as the main entrance points towards the island. And that would be the end of our presentation.
Okay, Darian, thank you so much. And Cassie, it really is useful, insightful GIS information. And we are hoping that through this information, everybody online will understand and you know, everybody's getting the bigger picture with respect to the increasing flood risk. Okay, so let me just share my screen once again. And we're moving into our next presenter, who is Mr. Kevin Harris from PRESRAY Corporation. Let me just introduce Kevin. I've been working with Kevin for the last 16 years. And Kevin, everyone seeing my screen? Yes? Are we seeing
Yes,
Kevin
we are.
on?
Yes,
Yeah,
Yes.
okay, wonderful. So Kevin, get ready to queue up. Kevin is a mechanical and an industrial engineer, and he's been with PRESRAY. Kevin, tell me again, how many years?
I'm coming up on 16, almost 17 years now.
Okay, and he's currently the Director of Field Sales and Business Development for PRESRAY Corporation, which is a leading best-in-class provider of critical containment products, which supports the flood protection industry, nuclear power generation, and biohazard laboratories. Kevin has extensive experience in providing solutions to maximize building and industry protection, and his recent activities have included partnering with Tier 1 Fortune 500 companies to mitigate their business exposures to natural disasters and protect their property portfolios in multiple countries, including Trinidad and Tobago, where PODS and PRESRAY has partnered, as I mentioned, for the past 16 years as its exclusive distributor on the ground here. Kevin he has a background, he served with the British Army on multiple international deployments, and he also specializes on international relief and humanitarian protection. So Kevin, you're going to take us through regulations and standards for flood barriers. And are you ready? I will stop sharing and hand right over to you.
Okay, good morning. Can you see my slides?
Yes, we
Yes,
can.
Kevin.
Good. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. My name's Kevin Harris, as Stacey mentioned. I'm very pleased to be part of this this webinar. Stacey and I have been working together, as she's mentioned, for 16 years, and we've got a great relationship. So one of the things I'm going to talk about today is regulations for flood barriers or flood mitigation. And the first question we have to ask ourselves is why? Why do we have a standard? Why do we have a regulation? And the reason being is that there are many, many suppliers who claim to be able to provide critical containment for buildings, for hospitals, hotels, government facilities, coastal areas. And what has happened over the past 15 to 20 years is that a number of these suppliers have had major catastrophic failures when under a flood situation. And so what's happened over the past number of years is there has been a push for a more standardization and some sort of specifications in requirements for flood mitigation, and also to be a supplier in that market. And it's very important because a lot of people spend money on these flood barriers, and then what happens is they end up with a product that doesn't work. They use it once, they get wet, they've spent money. So what we've actually started to do is, in the US particularly where we're based, FM Global, who are Factory Mutual, they're based out of the Massachusetts, they were the first people that really came up with a standard or standards for testing and approvals for flood barriers. And there are two types of flood barrier systems. There are temporary and there are permanent. And PRESRAY, we tend to do more of the permanent type barriers, or these barrier systems. These are devices and barriers that are attached to structures. So they're either permanently attached, as in the whole barrier system, or there are some segments of a barrier system that is attached to a building. The temporary systems are very much about what Muscle Wall we're going to talk about. They're systems that you will actually put in place during rainy season to help direct water away from a critical area to maybe surround an area that you can't attach to. And so FM Global have two standards. One is for the temporary and one is for the permanent barrier systems. And to become an FM approved supplier, you have to go through an approvals process, which PRESRAY have done, Muscle Wall have done. Most of our product offerings have gone through a very intensive testing. This is where the components are tested by FM. They come to our facility where we have a flood pit where we can test barriers, and they watch them, they observe, and they do 24-hour flooding type testing. So FM Global FM 215 has become the industry standard across the world. It's kind of the benchmark. And so when you're looking for flood mitigation systems, you should really be focusing on and making sure that those suppliers have gone through this process. Here in the US Corps of Engineers have adopted FM 215 as their standard, and the Corps of Engineers do a significant amount of projects, very large type projects in the US and some of the US territories. What does that mean in ways of design? So from our perspective, if you think of flood waters, there are two types. There's hydrodynamic, which is moving water, and there's also hydrostatic, which is freestanding water. And as a couple of presentations just showed, in Trinidad and Tobago, you have a combination. You have flash flooding, which is moving water, hydrodynamic, and you have standing water. What this graph is showing is how we, as PRESRAY, we take the standard from FM, and we've basically put loadings together to ensure that the flood barriers that you're looking to provide or to buy meet those specs. And what this graph shows you is the protection height on the left column and the width. And then based on whether it's jam mount, whether it's a face mount, whether it's in an urban area, it tells you the critical dimensions that we will actually design to before we need to change designs for center posts and or other items. It's the same for the hydrostatic. Hydrostatic is slightly different because you have more, it's just freestanding water. One of the things that PRESRAY has, as I mentioned, is we have our own internal flood pit. And so we can actually design and test all of our barriers to the FM standard. So here you can see in our facility here in New York, we have a flood pit. We're testing some of our removable barriers. One of our techs is sucking up the water to see how much leakage has happened. based on FM standards. And this is a great feature. In the background, you can see a big container tank that we have that we can replicate up to 40 feet of hydrostatic pressures. Some other standards that are worth considering are, we have this in the US, and this is a global standard now, is FEMA 3-93. And it's a regulation that's been introduced by FEMA, and it's a design parameter for non-residential flood-proofing requirements, specifically for buildings located in a flood hazard. And what FEMA are doing here is they map the US and they map other regions. They've come up with a design standard so that when flood barriers are going to be used or be selected, they are comfortable, and you are comfortable as the consumer, that if you're buying from PRESRAY, our barrier systems will meet this standard. And it's a critical standard. It's used in conjunction with the FEMA mapping. Here in the US, all of the coastal areas and the inner parts of the US have been analyzed by FEMA. FEMA have come up with a map, and it shows you, similar to what the previous slides, the previous presentation showed, the critical areas that are susceptible to flooding, whether it be hurricanes, tropical storms, flash flooding from raining. So this actually allows us as a supplier to ensure that our barriers not only are meeting the FM standard, but we're designing the barriers for FEMA 3-93. The other regulation and standard, which is big here in the US and is now being rolled out around the world, is ACSE 24, and I use /25 because in 2025 they are about to upgrade the standard and the actual requirements. And this basically ties in with 3-93. It's a way of, again, making sure that the barrier systems conform to a requirement. So one of the key parts of this is that barriers are designed for a minimum of a 20-year lifespan. So when we design a barrier, we're designing it to ensure that 20 years from now, that barrier is still working. Obviously, that doesn't allow for damage from local vehicle hitting the barrier and or consumable parts wearing out. The other part that this standard actually asks flood barrier manufacturers to do is have a focused post-project maintenance and service agreement. One of the critical things with flood barriers is if you spend money and buy a barrier, you need to know that the supplier is going to be able to support you with spare parts, maintenance, service contracts. And that's a key part of what this regulations is. One of the main reasons, again, in sort of conclusion, is that when you are looking to partner with a flood barrier specialist, it's critically important that they meet these standards. And the danger of not meeting that is that you will spend money and then you'll have barrier systems that just don't work. There are problems, and then it starts to get into a finger pointing thing. So that's a quick summary of regulations and standards on a global basis.
Thank you, Kevin. That was really, really interesting. And, sometimes in the absence in our market or the absence of local flood abatement standards, it's always very good to have an international benchmark, which really helps us to give a reference from which we can try to achieve best in practice. So thank you very much for that. Let me now share my screen once again as we move over to George. George is the new kid on the block with pods, and I'm happy to introduce and hand over to George, who will go through the cost-benefit analysis of flood barriers. George, I'm going to stop sharing after I introduce you. George Jewson is the Vice President. Everyone seeing my screen, correct? Yes?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
Correct.
thank you.
Yes.
Okay, thanks, guys. So George is the Vice President of Business and Strategic Development at MUSCLE WALL, which he has positioned as a leader in flood control and containment barrier systems designed to manage water and other environmental challenges. His role at MUSCLE WALL allows him to combine his strategic insight with his passion for customer safety, ensuring that clients receive effective, environmentally friendly solutions to complex challenges. Known for his collaborative approach and his ability to foster meaningful partnerships, George is a respected leader within the industry. He continues to leverage his expertise to expand Muscle Wall's reach and reinforces its mission of creating durable, innovative, and adaptable barriers for flood and erosion control and environmental remediation projects. PODS is extremely happy to announce its newest partnership with Muscle Wall as the exclusive distributor for Trinidad and Tobago. So I'll stop sharing now and I'm going to hand over to George. George, welcome and thank you.
Yes, great. Appreciate the opportunity to partner with you, Stacy, and to continue our partnership and association with Kevin and PRESRAY. And good morning to everybody who's attending. Thank you for making some time to be talking about something that is so critical in today's environment. We're seeing and experiencing weather events that are affecting our daily life, and it's important to have these conversations. And I just think it's rather brilliant of Stacy to be talking now to prepare. And that's really the most important thing that Kevin and I really focus on, along with the fact that we are focusing with our best-in-class technologies, but also helping people understand the importance of preparation. And we'll talk about that here. So Muscle Wall is a very well tested and proven technology. We have been tested and approved and certified with the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. We've also been tested to equal and or exceed the FM testing standards that Kevin so well noted, as well as 17 years of projects, of successful projects with the Corps, with FEMA, and then DOT's National Park Services, the NRCS, which is the division of the U.S. Department of Agriculture. And we've done a great deal of work in both private and public sectors. I'm going to briefly just introduce the technology to you. This is basically the family of technologies within the Muscle Wall family. We have very low profile containment and control technologies, along with technologies as high as 8 feet. And quickly, you can see this really simple video slide. It really briefly identifies what is the magic with Muscle Wall. And ultimately, Muscle Wall is a mobile retention system designed for the management and control and command and redirection of flood waters and a combination of flood and sediment and so forth, and designed for long-term use and reuse. And focusing on the cost and the benefits, I'm going to briefly touch on these to really identify the importance and the significance of not only what Stacy is focusing on with PODS, but also just to really bring to your minds the importance of these things. So Muscle Wall is designed as a temporary to long-term mitigation solution. And that's why not only do we partner with PODS, but also that's why you have a best-in-class partnership with both Muscle Wall and PRESRAY, because both of those scenarios need to be addressed, not only a temporary and long-term, but also a permanent. We also find that our upfront costs support long-term savings. We find that with a lot of different technologies, costs ultimately don't always support the best term effect and ultimately long-term savings. And ultimately, our mission is always about trying to protect against the loss of life, which is always the most important thing, and against the potential loss of infrastructure. We've also been certified by FM to be able to support the insurance relationship as a true mitigation solution, a risk-reducing solution. And then as part of our focus, obviously, by defending critical infrastructure and protecting life, we can support the continuity of the economics within Trinidad and Tobago. And most importantly, we find with our best-in-class strategies and technologies that we provide a bit of peace of mind, knowing that you're not alone in trying to protect those things that matter most to you. And then obviously, it is always best and has been proven even by FEMA in the United States that every dollar you spend on preparation, you'll save anywhere from $5 to $15 on reparations. That supports the true stability of the property and ultimately of life itself. So as a comparison, once again, noting that muscle wall is a temporary to long-term technology. These are, you can see muscle walls noted in the center. There's Tiger Dam and Aquafence. These are other temporary to long-term use technologies. And I'm just identifying briefly some of the cost benefits. Generally speaking, muscle wall will be a little bit or significantly more expensive than the competition. And ultimately, we're looking to identify not just best in class, but getting the most, bang for your buck. I always identify this. It's rather interesting. The number one used flood device technology, if you will, in the world remains to be the sandbag. And just as an identifier, the Army Corps has noted that for every sandbag, it's about a $2.50 to $5 per bag cost, depending on variable dynamics, cost of labor, transportation, so forth. Our comparable price is around $2 per bag equivalency rate. And each 1 4-foot muscle wall equals about 468 sandbags, and ultimately a more sustainable, reusable, reliable, and quicker, more effective mitigation technology. To support the request for a case study, this is one of many. This happens to be utility. And I wanted to identify this case study primarily because utilities certainly fall into the box of critical infrastructure. This is a project, a very successful project, and ultimately providing effective defense for a utility substation. And I also wanted to note that it was also FEMA funded. So not only are we tested and certified with the global agencies, we're also funded and approved by agencies like FEMA, which is very significant. We can't do that without our certification and appropriate testing. Additionally, just to support some of the requests that we've seen and some requests from Stacy and Pods, identifying some of the experiences we've had. These are multiple deployments where we have long runs. The one in the upper left is a DOT application in the state of Minnesota. And the reason why I like to identify that one is that a lot of times, especially in Trinidad and Tobago, you're going to need long runs to be able to maintain roadways and protect critical infrastructure. Additionally, we've done a great deal of work with critical infrastructure, and also want to identify the significance and the capabilities of the technology. So you can see in the bottom left, because of the design and engineering of muscle wall, we can work around the environment. You can see in the bottom left, we're jumping over an obstruction. You can see that same scenario in the center picture. And then in the upper right, if we need to support some additional challenges and risks, we can increase the abilities of the technology with different engineering and design. So we are a very reusable, long-term reuse and use technology, very resilient technology, very well designed for today's climate challenge environments. We also, the muscle wall is designed with a heavy UV inhibitor. So this is a technology that can be in the environments for indefinite periods of time and definitely meets and or exceeds the regulatory requirements that Kevin briefly mentioned. Additionally, we're focusing obviously on flood control, but as the poll had requested, there's additional things that muscle wall has successfully engaged. We've done a great deal of work in the stormwater environment, a lot of primary and secondary containment success, along with general erosion and coastal erosion. Here's a great example of muscle wall doing multiple things. It's providing erosion control on the perimeter of this development site. It's also a filtering mechanism. You can see a filter fabric on top of the muscle wall here to make sure that stormwater controls are being managed and effective. And then it's also, in a third form, providing retention on this perimeter of this development. Additionally, we've done many, many years of coastal erosion and coastal defense, providing effective and manageable solutions for critical infrastructure, defense, and protection. This particular project in Southern California, we've been actively and successfully mitigating now for just over 8 years. And here's some additional pictures from that location that I just showed you, and some of the benefits to being able to use a very active and agile technology and solution. And then ultimately, all of our systems are designed for a very effective storage and for transportation. And Stacy, that is it for my presentation at this point.
Thank you, George. Just to kind of reinforce what you're saying in terms of the dollar value, the dollars and cents, let me just stop spotlighting you there. We also have to take into consideration things like, reputational damage, the downtime, for when you have, maybe a flood impact when it comes to businesses. You have to look at the communities in which, the organization is serving, that you're not able to do that, cleanup costs. So, we have to look beyond the actual physical stuff and look towards the other factors that correlate to a dollar value as well. So it really is an eye-opener and much food for thought. Next up, we have Kevin. We're back with Kevin. Kevin, you're going to take us through designing flood barriers for urban areas. Take it away.
Okay, give me 2 seconds. Okay, I'm back again. Just to touch on something that George mentioned there in his presentation, PRESRAY and MUSCLE WALL, we're partners in the industry. We don't compete with each other. And what has happened for PRESRAY and MUSCLE WALL is that our barrier systems complement MUSCLE WALL and vice versa. And we have many projects where there is a need for temporary solutions similar to MUSCLE WALL, and then also at the same time permanent solutions, which PRESRAY do. So the two go hand in hand. What we're going to talk about now is some of the PRESRAY products that we use for in the urban areas, the cities, the large towns, coastal areas. One of the things that PRESRAY does, all of our product offerings, we have standard products from swing doors to pop-up barriers to vertical lifts, hatches. All of our products are designed specifically for the site application. So it's not an off-the-shelf item. It's not like you can say to me, hey, I have this and this is what I need. We actually spend a lot of time up front taking a look at what your requirements are, doing a review. We do this with Stacey and Pods in Trinidad and Tobago, where Stacey will go out to the site, she'll take a look, she sends me photographs, we video, we talk through to ensure that we're offering the best solution for the client. It's not about me just saying, this is the best product that I want to sell you. So all of our products are customizable. And in fact, 99% of what we do is on a custom basis. So I'm just going to go through some of the types of products that we have that are permanent, that can be used for critical infrastructure, for banks, for police stations, fire stations, power utilities, which is big. And the idea behind this is that once a flooding event has happened, it's critical that infrastructure gets back working to support us, the consumer or the user. So I want to touch quickly on some of the products. We offer a watertight door with a mechanical seal. This is called a D3C. This frame mounts over an existing opening. This door, the seal here is this black part. You can shut this seal, you can shut this door up. It can be designed up for 300 feet of water pressure if needed. We do it for dams here in the US, but it's a great product for wastewater treatment plants. It's great for where you have power into critical infrastructure buildings, where you need to ensure that the infrastructure on the inside of the building is not going to get wet. We offer hatches. The hatches are, for items in the ground. You'll find these again, wastewater treatment plants, fire stations, police stations, hospitals, where they have underground resources that are important for maintaining the operations. We do removable barriers with inflatable seals. I just want to quickly touch on seals. One of the things that when PRESRAY started back in the late 50s, it actually started on its seal technology. It was the first company pretty much globally to develop a seal system to stop, and in the application that was designed for was in the nuclear industry, to stop the radioactive waters getting in and out from the plutonium storage tanks. PRESRAY took that technology and made it into flood barriers. Inflatable seals are just as we say. You put compressed air into them and they expand out. Whereas compression gaskets are a rigid seal that have like a combing edge or something that sticks into it. Both achieve the same objective of keeping things dry or contained, but it's just a different technology. We tend to find that for higher end clients, particularly here in the US, the UK, where I'm from, Singapore, the Philippines, they like to go with the inflatable seals. We offer removable systems. These are barriers where you have a frame that's attached to a doorway or an opening or a louver, or where you're actually looking for ventilation. And this actual whole panel itself is removable. It can just be lifted out. It can be stored locally. We have a hinged version. It's very similar to the removable I just showed you. It's the same frame type design. And in a moment, in about 10-15 minutes, when I talk about a case study, I'm going to show you some photographs of these type of products where we've done them for a tier 1 company. We have a flip up barrier system. So if you don't have the space to have a swing door, or you don't have the capability to have removable, we design barrier systems that come out of the ground. We have this in Trinidad. This is at the library. We have one of these systems that we put in about 15 years ago. We have stackable barrier systems. This is a removable stackable log system. This is actually one of our local fire stations, not far from where I'm talking now. And the photograph there is actually when they had a flood, they deployed the barriers. This is a product that Stacey sells a lot of in Trinidad and now in Tobago. It's a great, I suppose in many respects, a starter entry type product. It's very easy to use. These logs are removable. It comes in 6-inch increments. It's fast to deploy, and it's a great product. Just to show again, as we talk about the logs, these are the graphs as we're designing these products for urban areas. We're taking a look at hydrostatic requirements. We're taking a look at hydrodynamic requirements. We're taking a look to see if there's debris impact. All of the barrier systems I'm just talking about here, we design for that. We have an FB33. This is a modular system that goes into doorways. It's expandable. I'll just show you how it works. It's basically a specialty stainless steel frame with a screw jack, and it comes with a what we call a pouch that's over it and a debris impact shield. And when you turn the yellow handle, the barrier expands, and it's ideally suited for doorways. So you can see here we have a double one with a center post. If you had a single door, it's lightweight. It can be deployed very simply. One of the things we do with removable barriers, we're very focused on ergonomics, because you're never quite sure who is going to be deploying the barrier. So we make them as lightweight as possible, as durable as they can be, so that, to be quite honest, a young child, 14, 15-year-old child, can actually deploy this if they're not home in the home residency. Again, just showing for the FB33, we have a design package here. It tells us what the maximum height we can go to, and then it tells us the width along the bottom, and then where we need to start going either to a double design, as in double tube, or we need to start adding mullions. So we've got all of this technology behind the products. One of the things we do for Urban is we have a full service and parts department. We can go anywhere in the world. We have field service technicians. We have most parts in stock. Obviously some custom parts we have to fabricate and manufacture. And it all ties back into our ability to be able to test our products. So everything that we can do and that we sell and we supply to the market, we've tested. We've tested in our facility. We've done changes. We're constantly working on research and development. We have a couple of very unique products that are going through our research department right now that when we release them, probably early Q2 next year, will be game changers in the mitigation market. We're very focused on materials. Traditionally, people think that flood barriers should be big and heavy and made from big chunks of steel. One of the things that we've learned in the past 5 to 6 years is that material technology has changed. There are composite materials that are stronger than stainless steel. So we're spending a lot of time working and testing on these types of devices. So that was just a quick introduction to urban type permanent barrier systems. Back to you, Stacey.
Okay. Let me just, okay, so I'm gonna play a video for you guys now, which will give a very good appreciation as to some of the work that we have done in the local market since 2008. I know Darren asked about of the 200 flood barriers, how many were done in South? And you're gonna see some installations. I can answer you that question. Basically, Darren, we have installed in Penal, and that was at a residential home. Most of the installations have been done within Port of Spain, the east-west corridor, primarily. We have done in Penal, and that residence in Penal, as a matter of fact, the owner called me. They got not flooded out, but they got water coming up as high as 3 feet. They are raised above ground level, but it did come up, and she said to me, I am so grateful. It worked. We did not get flooded, and everybody else did. So we've only done one in Penal, but the majority have been primarily, when we started with residences. That was in 2008. Before the model that Kevin showed, the FB33, we had the door dam, and that's what everybody was installing. With the movement to going towards FM approvals and raising the quality of the product itself, it meant that, and as time passed, I will be very honest, pricing went up with materials, with COVID. And so we have found now more a shift from persons coming to us for, and as local entrepreneurs enter the field, enter the market, producing lower quality barriers, which are fine. I encourage local entrepreneurship, and it's a lower end barrier that if people can't afford barriers, it is something that they can use. But people are now gravitating, persons who want to maintain a quality barrier, they want to invest in quality barriers that have the backing of international standards, who can trust and rely on a vendor who has been in the field, as I said, from since 2016 to now. You find those are the types of customers that are coming to us more for bigger projects, for industrial, commercial type projects. But we do have the solutions for the homes, and a lot of the homes that have installed in Port of Spain in the east-west corridor have also been successful projects, and we have had excellent testimonials. I mean, a lot of people don't want to be published for their testimonials, but many testimonials coming in on the effectiveness of the barrier. So I'm going to share again, and it's going to show you some local installations. Obviously, I could not do all, but it will give you a good grasp of the local installation. So can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Just tell me if you heard the audio in the video.
Yes, we are.
Okay, so I'll play the video now. Okay, so I hope that helps. That give you all a good sense of what we've done in the market this far. Was that useful? Yeah? Are you guys there? Hi,
Yeah,
can
but
Great
someone
video.
talk
didn't
to
hear
Great
me?
the
video, Stacy.
Oh,
didn't
what
hear
you didn't hear?
the sound. We didn't hear the sound in the video. Was there supposed to be sound?
Oh yeah, you didn't? Oh no. I enabled sharing. Okay, well, that's okay. At least you saw.
I hear
Did
the
you
sound. I
saw?
hear the soundtrack.
Let me just. Would you guys like? Is it necessary for me to play it again, or you'll get a good sense of what we've done in the market? Oh, some people got audio. Okay. All right, so I won't go back. Oh yeah, somebody's asking. Give me a thumbs up if you need me to replay it. Okay, I guess people are okay. We also, everybody will have access. Everybody, people are saying yes. Okay, let me try this again. I'm just gonna share. Sorry, people, bear with me. Start over the video. Okay. Alrighty, here goes. You guys hearing it now? Yes?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll just leave up this because some people in the chat asked for contact information, so you have it there, at least for a little bit. What I can say, and I would like to share over my time in the flood protection area, we have definitely seen a number, as I said, a number of local pop-ups who are doing lower end barriers, and that's fine and that's okay. But guys, I hope that the information shared today shows exactly the trends for the flood risk and what's happening with our climate change. And I mean, this year we had the threat of Hurricane Beryl. And so we've got to take a very serious approach to our flood protection systems. And I can say that a lot of the local entrepreneurs, as again, I support local entrepreneurship, and I am one myself. But just as I want to ensure customers have a peace of mind, I also want a peace of mind that when I lie down and sleep at night, my customers are well protected, their assets are protected, the critical infrastructure is protected, because you stand to shut down many critical service areas, etc., to the national community. So for the people, again, I reiterate that, we've been around for the last 16 years. We don't plan to go anywhere unless the good Lord, this has another plan for me. Yes, the recordings will be made available within 24 hours for all follow-ups, and you can engage me directly to reach out and also to connect with Pods on PRESRAY. So not to worry about that, folks. Okay, so we're good on timing. It's 11:13, and I'm going to open up questions now for Q&A, and I will also post the feedback link in the chat as well. So now is your time. You can raise your hands if you do have a question, and we'd be happy to respond. I know the questions posted in the chat, I think all of them were addressed basically. So if you do have a question, you'd like to open up the conversations, now's your time, people. Feel free. It's now 11:14. We are actually on time, so we've got 15 minutes to close off, and I'd like you to take the floor now. So please go ahead if you have any questions. Yes, we have a YouTube channel, the Pods channel. That again will come in the follow-up email that you will get for attending the webinar. And actually, this video will be posted on our YouTube channel that you can access. Okay, I see Catherine has her hand up. Catherine, thank you for joining us. Go right ahead.
Hi, good morning, everybody, and thank you so much for the presentation. We truly appreciate the statistics that were shared by ODPM, as well as the information shared by the muscle wall system. My question is, I saw a demonstration in one of the pictures where the muscle wall was used in a step formation on coastal erosion projects. Could it be used in place of simple systems such as the gabion basket walls that we use sometimes on the sides of a river bank? So the reason I'm asking is because it will be a lot easier to install, but it would depend on the specifications it's designed for. So I don't know how robust it is to withstand that type of active pressure from using it instead of a gabion basket wall. Thanks.
Yeah. So Catherine, this is George with Muscle Wall. Great question. Thank you for that question. So the answer to your question is yes, we've used it in those types of applications and scenarios as a replacement to a gabion basket. I think it's also very important to understand, and Kevin has noted this from PRESRAY, every situation has its own unique dynamics and challenges. And so I can tell you, yes, we have done that, but I would also strongly suggest that we take a look at each situation to make sure that we're reviewing it from an engineering perspective and to make sure that we're addressing some of those risks and challenges to make sure that muscle wall is appropriate for that specific application.
Appreciate the response. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Catherine. Maybe Kevin and George, you want to keep your videos on? Anybody else from the audience? I see Anuradha has up her hand. Anuradha, go right ahead.
Hi, Stacey. And
Hi.
thank you for all of the presentations previously. My question is with regards to one of the barriers in the video, the UTC barrier. And I saw that the barriers go up to 6 feet, which is quite high, right? My question is with regards to this barrier or these types of barriers, is this an example of the permanent ones that was mentioned before? Or is this a barrier that is removable? Is it something that you all train persons to put in place in the event of a forecasted flood? And how often do you all check them to ensure that they're holding up to flooding?
Okay, thanks for those questions, Anuradha. Yes, so for the installation of those are called fast logs. And for those fast logs, the brackets or what Kevin would term as the jam mounts, there are different types of mounts. once those are securely fastened to concrete walls, and we have to ensure that we have a rigid structure to mount those jam mounts or brackets on. Once that is done, the logs are, those logs you can have set aside. So you need to have some storage space to have them set aside near to your opening. You need to have, depending on how wide that opening is, how long those 6-inch, because they're stackable logs. Within those, so each 6-inch stackable log, as you raise and you go up high and you add on your logs, they kind of interlock like this, and there's the seal between the logs. So as you build up your log, those are the things that are removable. You set them aside. When you're ready, you put them in place, you stack them up, you screw them down, and then when you're done, you just either you leave them, depending on if it's not an entrance used pretty often. If it is, you set it aside and you leave them there. With respect to maintenance, now the maintenance on all of PRESRAY's products here in the local market, I mean, it's extremely easy. It's not rocket science. Yes, we can either train you to maintain them yourselves. You get an installation manual and everything that goes with the product. But when we install, if you have a team that you'd like us to train, we do that, and you can handle the maintenance if you have the resources, or you can engage us. We have customers who engage us on a quarterly basis to come back, and they take out a maintenance contract with us. So you can do that as well. But primarily from the local market, since 2016 to now, what I can tell you is we still have customers who, when Kevin says 20 years, I actually do believe him. Sometimes I think maybe it's not true, but we do have customers who installed in 2008 whose barriers are still out there. And all they need to do is probably replace those pouches that Kevin showed you, which end up dry rotting, or if they have not maintained the barrier systems with a little WD-40, a little grease on the inside with the jack, you can have your pouches or the seals, the pouches for the FB33s, which is for the single openings, but you can also have the seals replaced. Kevin and PRESRAY has done a good job at maintaining, having after sales service, and me being able to provide customers here with what they need for replacement parts, etc. So I hope that answers your question. Was it Anuradha?
Yes, Stacey. Thank you.
You're
And
most
just
welcome.
one other question, and this is with regards to the combined impact of water and sedimentation in a case where you may have a lot of sediment coming down. Has there been, or could anyone speak to how these seals or these barriers, how have they held up to the double whammy impact of maybe water and sedimentation, or maybe even further in a landslide situation?
You're talking about here in the local market, or you're talking about generally?
I mean, if generally, if ever it has withstood any of those impacts, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll take
I can
that,
address that,
Stacey.
Kevin. I can address that as well.
Yeah.
So Kevin, go ahead.
Yeah, so one of the things I showed during the presentations was the graphs of how we design. So we have hydrostatic water, we have moving water, which is hydrodynamic. We also design for debris impact. And debris impact is based as a standard on 1,000-pound object at a velocity, which is a velocity means the moving rate of 8 foot per second. And that's the industry standard. So we design our barrier systems for that. If it's on a coastal zone, so it's down the Port of Spain by the ocean, we also design for what's called dynamic wave action, and that's a wave hitting the barriers. So all of our barriers are designed with that in mind. We also design for, when you talk of sediment, we do a lot of work in Florida in the US, and I was just down recently in Naples and Tampa following the hurricanes, where we had barriers that are 8 feet high. And not only did they stop the tidal surge, the waves coming in, they stopped the sand that was in the waves. And after the water had receded, they had 4 to 5 feet of sand against the barriers. George, you want to add to that?
Yeah, so So what we've done, as it's very similar to what Kevin is talking about, is we take a look at each application and then come up with an engineered plan to help mitigate a combination of floodwaters, debris flows. We've done that successfully for several years. We usually call that basically it's an energy check dam to reduce the energy flow. So we can engineer our system to be able to do that. And I think just like we've talked here, it would be a combination of things that would probably be the best, but each situation is going to be a little bit different than anything else.
Thank you. Thank you, Stacey.
You're most welcome. And, as you know, after this webinar, it's our intention that every people begin to engage pods and by extension, PRESRAY and MUSCLE WALL. And we are working as a team as we realize some projects are simple, but some projects are complex. And in so doing, we can really try to figure out what is the solution that you need and how we can support you. So it's not just a matter of a quick fix of we're going to sell you a barrier. No, we take it at a different level. You can engage us afterwards and we can work with you. I have to say that since I've been working with Kevin and PRESRAY, Kevin goes at length for me. Kevin has supported me. We're the Caribbean market. We in no way compared to what the US market is like, but Kevin has always treated me as a valued customer, even though I am just in Trinidad and Tobago. So thank you, Kevin. I really appreciate that. And it shows the commitment that we have. And by extension now, bringing MUSCLE WALL and George in, we can provide an extensive portfolio of temporary, permanent, and cover a much wider applications to figure out solutions. So there's no excuse for us now not to be prepared. I see Marsha had up a hand. Marsha, thank you for your patience. Okay, it's back up. So we're happy to hear from you. Feel free to turn on your video if you like.
I'll just keep it for the mic because we have people in the office here. I have a question for Cassie and Duran. A lot of the data, they have a lot of data that they presented. And with that data, I was wondering how how well are they able to predict flooding based on that data now? Or is it with that with climate change, do they see an expansion of flood-prone areas, and are they not able to predict accurately anymore? So the more of the population will have to avail themselves of these flood barriers, or are they able to predict with some accuracy still where and how intense the flooding will be?
Cassie and Darren, would you like to turn on your mics and maybe address that question? Sorry, turn on your mics and video.
No problem. I'll speak to Tobago. What we usually do is impact-based forecasting. So we would have known the areas that would have been impacted, and we would have seen the severity as to how bad it can get. So sometimes we put mitigation measures in place beforehand. So like clearing the drains, such, etc. Putting up soaker bags, etc. to mitigate the impacts of flooding. But in terms of the prediction, it all depends on the amount of rainfall that is predicted, but weather changes in the snap of a finger. Met Service might predict, let's say, 50 millimeters of rainfall, and sometimes you only receive 10 millimeters. So what we usually do is prepare for the worst case scenario, so anything else will be manageable from there.
Cassie?
I agree with what Darren said, and it applies for Trinidad as well.
Okay. Thank you very much. Does that answer your question? Are you good?
Yes, it does. It does. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other hands up? Is anybody seeing any other hands up? Okay. I have posted the feedback form in the chat, guys. Please, we appreciate your feedback. Please give us your feedback about the webinar this morning. It will also allow us to engage if you need to be engaged and if you need to engage us. I do see Avinash had up his hand. It's down now. Avinash, do you have a question, please? Please feel
Hi,
free.
good morning.
Morning.
Hi, morning, everyone. I'm not sure if I missed it. Do you know what's the weight of one of the barriers like the door? Because where I work, there are a lot more female staff. So in case they have engaged the barrier, I'm not sure if they'll be able to lift it. I had concerns before they saying it was too heavy and they couldn't put it engage the barrier. So I was wondering what's the average weight of one of the barriers?
So you're talking about the FB33 model,
Yeah.
which is the one that has the handle that you lift?
Yeah, the one with the handle that you lift, yeah.
What I can tell you, the 2-foot high one for a standard doorway of 36 inches from a female perspective, because I need to lift them, it's quite easy for me for a 2-foot. A 3-foot, I can still lift. It's a bit heavy. Kevin, you could give me the weight of a 3-foot high, 36 wide barrier off the top of your head?
Yes, it's 23, about 25 kilograms.
Okay. So it could be, I mean, depending on the age of the person and the physical ability of the person to lift, they can, or maybe they might need assistance, Avinash, from a female perspective.
All right, no problem. Thanks.
Welcome.
Just to add on for the fast logs, which Stacey sells a lot of, they're 2.3 kilograms per linear foot. So if you have a 10-foot one, it's going to be 20 odd kilograms. They're very lightweight. It's aluminum. So we are very focused on the ergonomics, and we're constantly looking to, how to reduce weight, because you make a very, very valid point. It may not be you and I who are, big guys to lift it. It may be, my mother, your wife's girlfriends, children even. So we are very conscious of the weight factor.
Okay, it's just about 11:29 now. We're supposed to wrap up at 11:30, so we have a couple seconds left for any other final questions. Please click on the link and provide feedback for us. We would truly appreciate it if you would please oblige and fill out that form for us. Right. Yes, Darren, point noted. It can be a little bit challenging. It can be. I would not tell a lie. But the 2-foot ones are very, very manageable. Okay, any other final questions? Okay, with that being said, I just want to now, I have begged you to fill out the feedback form enough. The link is in the chat. I do want now to close off, and so we really, really, really cannot impress upon everybody here today that preparedness should be taken seriously. And through the information you have received today, we really hope that you take a proactive stance, whether it's your home, it's your business, or if it's critical infrastructure. We really want to change the culture in Trinidad and Tobago to move from response and start pushing those conversations to mitigation and preparedness. If you are interested and do need to consider flood barriers for next season, it is ample time to get engaged with us. It's a process. It's a process to put in an order at PRESRAY. It's a process to determine what are the exact needs of your project if you have to engage us. It's a process to import. It's a process to get foreign exchange, guys. So please, please engage us early. And despite Christmas and Carnival, keep those preparedness plans top of mind. Please, enforce the preparedness aspect. And also, I cannot exit this webinar, and I express my sincerest thanks to all of my partners, Kevin at PRESRAY, George at Muscle Wall, and of course our 2 National Disaster Management Officers, Cassie from the ODPM and Darian from TIMA. Thank you for bringing to the national community. And we did have up to 93 persons on this webinar today, which is a great, great, great start. Let's keep the conversations going. This was the first best-in-class flood mitigation webinar. Hoping to hear from you all. Thank you for participating. Within 24 hours, you can expect to receive a post-webinar email from me. And I did post up a little slide with my contact information. So just, it's there. You're most welcome. So without further ado, stay safe, everyone. And we say goodbye. Have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you, Stacey. Bye.
You're most welcome, everybody.
Bye, Stacey. Thank you. Have a good day, everyone.
You're
you. Bye.
welcome.
Bye, Stacy. Thank you very much.
Bye.